Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to session number 290 of Kevin Reed's A Course in Miracles. All right, we are focusing on the supplements, all right? We're focusing on the Song of Prayer, okay? The supplements to the Course in Miracles came out about a year after the text was published. As Jesus would say to Evelyn, you're doing okay, but you could do a little better, all right? So, and there's a lot of clarification that goes on within these pages here. And this is Praying with Others, section 4, Praying with Others. Until the second level at least begins, one cannot share in prayer. For until that point, each one must ask for different things. But once the need to hold the other as an enemy has been questioned, and the reason for doing so has been recognized, if only for an instant, it becomes possible to join in prayer. Enemies do not share a goal. It is in this that their enmity is kept. Their separate wishes are their arsenals, their fortresses in hate. The key to rising further still in prayer lies in this simple thought, this change of mind. We go together, you and I. Okay, so he's been referring to prayer as a ladder, right? And as we practice and things become clearer, we ascend that ladder. And what he's talking about here is the second level. Until the second level begins, one cannot share in prayer. So that second level is the idea of separate interests is being at least questioned. All right, well, maybe we don't have all those separate interests. Maybe our main interest is the awareness of peace, right? The awareness of innocence. Until the second level at least begins, one cannot share in prayer. All right? So until we start thinking that, well, maybe on some level we're united here. He says, until that point, each one must ask for different things. All right? So we must, and we reinforce the idea of separation. I need things that are different from you. But once the need to hold the other as an enemy has been questioned, and the reason for doing so has been recognized, if only for an instant, it becomes possible to join in prayer. Right? So this rising up the ladder, the second level begins. Right? Once I start to question my need to hold the other as an enemy, to make the other guilty. Right? Once I start to question that, and the reason I do it becomes clear, if only for an instant. Right? The reason I do that is to maintain the idea of separation. Maintain the idea of guilt. Right? You're guilty. But it becomes possible to join now in prayer once I realize or start to realize even, that we don't have separate interests. Right? We have the same interest. And you can put it any way you want, becoming aware of innocence, attaining peace of mind. As saying that's attributed to Ram Dass, but somebody said, Rumi said it first. We're all walking each other home. Right? And that becomes clearer and clearer as we rise up the ladder. He says, but if you only realize it for an instant, it now becomes possible to join in prayer. Enemies do not share a goal. Right? It is in their enmity that the goal is kept. The goal of separation. Right? So enemies don't share a goal. Right? And it is in their hatred for one another that it is in their enmity. It is in this that their enmity is kept. We're different, in other words. That's where my hatred, my anger, my projection of guilt onto the other is kept. My enmity is kept in the fact that I believe we're separate. Right? Their separate wishes are their arsenals. All right? Their fortresses in hate. And the key to rising further still in prayer lies in this simple thought, this change of mind. Right? Now all of a sudden I see this person differently. And the key is, the thought is, we go together, you and I. Right? We're on this road together. He says that is the shift. That is the big shift. In paragraph 2, he says, now it is possible to help in prayer and to reach up yourself. This step begins the quicker ascent, but there are still many lessons to learn. The way is open and hope is justified. Yet it is likely at first that what is asked for, even by those who join in prayer, is not the goal the prayer should truly seek. Even together, you may ask for things, and thus set up but an illusion of a goal you share. You may ask together for specifics, and not realize that you are asking for effects without the cause. And this you cannot have. For no one can receive effects alone, asking a cause from which they do not come to offer them to him. All right? So in other words, you know, like they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Right? We have good intentions. We join a prayer circle. Right? And first realizing that we all have the same need. Right? Somewhere in our mind we realize that. And we find like-minded people and we come together in a prayer circle, say. And we're praying for world peace. Right? We're praying for a certain person or a certain outcome. So even though you may ask for things and thus set up but an illusion of a goal that you share, this is we're asking for things, for specifics. And we're just setting up an illusion of a goal that we share. We share the goal of world peace. All right? And he's not saying you're bad, not saying you're dumb or anything like that, not condemning you. Just saying, just notice that you're still holding on. You're still holding on to separation in some form, right? And you're asking for peace to come out of chaos, right? He says you're not approaching the true cause, right? You may ask together for specifics, and not realize you are asking for effects without the cause. And this you cannot have. All right? So we're asking for specifics. All right? We think what the world needs is peace. All right? So he says, you know, it's almost like you're fooling yourself. You don't realize you're still holding on to the idea that out of, you know, I can ask this world to be peaceful. Right? He says, for you can't receive effects alone, asking a cause from which they do not come to offer them. Right? So I'm looking into the chaos of the world and expecting peace to come from that. All right? So he's going to be telling us that just notice what you're doing. All right? And notice what you're clinging to without judging yourself. All right? Just as he said to Helen, you're doing okay, you're on the right track, but you could do a little better. All right? It's wonderful to join in a common cause. All right? He says, but we can do better. All right? We can just join with the original cause. All right? And let the answers just fall where they will. All right? Let everything be answered in a language that we can understand. All right? Paragraph 3, even joining then is not enough. All right? If those who pray together do not ask before all else, what is the will of God? From this cause only can the answer come in which all specifics satisfied, in which are all specifics satisfied, all separate wishes unified in one. Prayer for specifics always asks to have the past repeated in some way. What was enjoyed before, or seemed to be, what was another's and he seemed to love, all these are but illusions from the past. The aim of prayer is to release the present from its chains of past illusions. Let it be a freely chosen remedy from every choice that stood for a mistake. What prayer can offer now so far exceeds all that you have asked for before that it is pitiful to be content with less. All right? So he's just telling us, just do what you do. Just notice what you do. Okay? All right? And realize, and he says you can make the ascent quickly now, because things will start to fall into place. Right? Like the Matrix. All of a sudden you'll realize, oh yeah, I'm clinging to this. I want a specific outcome. Instead of going just communing, as Jesus would call it in this section, true prayer. All right? I'm just in my mind, in that place that remembers all that is, remembers love, remembers innocence. And I'm just basking in the unconditional love. Right? That's the prayer. Right? That's the will of God. So he says, even the joining then is not enough. If those who pray together do not ask before all else, what is the will of God? So that should be the beginning of any prayer. What is the will of God? I want to know. And the will of God is that you realize your innocence. All right? That you see the innocence and remember your connection to God. That's the will of God. Right? So even though we may be frightened by the chaos of the world, or saddened and frightened by the illness of a friend or loved one, and these are very intense emotions. So it's understandable how in our human condition we would just turn to a God and say, help me, help my friend, help the world be peaceful. All right? He says, okay, we get it. Don't stop. Just realize what you're holding on to. And what we're holding on to is these specifics. Right? In other words, what's coming up for me now is that I'm not really trusting. Right? I'm not really trusting in the will of God. All right? I think I know what has to be done. Right? So he says, even the joining then is not enough if those who pray together do not ask, what is the will of God? All right? First of all, what is the will of God? He says, because from this cause only can the answer come in which all specifics are satisfied. So in joining with that cause, what is the will of God? The answer to all the specifics will come through you. All separate wishes will be unified into one. Right? Prayer for specifics always asks to have the past repeated in some way. All right? I remember when I was peaceful. I want to be peaceful again. I remember when I was healthy. I want to have that health. You know, whatever. I remember when I had money. I want to have that money again. All those specifics that we pray for. It's just asking to have the past repeated in some way. I remember when I wasn't frightened. I don't want to be frightened anymore. What was enjoyed before, or seemed to be, what was another's, and he seemed to love. All these are but illusions from the past. The aim of prayer is to release the present from its chains of past illusions. In other words, it's like, forget about what I think I need and join with the will of God. I want to join with the oneness. I want to join with the love. Right? And that's what we're practicing that. And we practice that by noticing what I'm clinging to. And don't judge yourself for clinging to it. I mean, geez, I have friends and family members that, you know, you want them to be relieved from their suffering. Right? It's not a bad thing. Right? You just want to get to the point where you don't have to know what's best for everybody. You don't have to take care of everybody in that way. You just have to join with the will of God. Right? Just join with the love and let the love take the shape of an answer. Right? He says that's where all the separate wishes are unified into one. Right? I mean, it's just a very poetic way of saying you will understand. You will understand situations and things won't look so threatening. or they will not look threatening at all. And it's a practice. It's a practice. Because the aim of prayer is to release the present from its chains of the past. I want it to go back to the way it was. All right? I want my brothers and sisters to go back to a happier time. All right? I don't want my friends to struggle. All right? I remember when they didn't struggle. I remember when they were happy. All right? So we're releasing the present moment from the chains of the past. Right? That's what we're holding on to. We're holding on to those images of the past. All right? And this whole section on prayer, it started off with, I believe, with true prayer, and that's what he's getting to. All these things reiterate that idea is to just notice what you're clinging to and keep practicing just coming into the presence. Just come into the present moment where the memory of the truth is, where the memory of who you are resides, where the memory of your relationship with your Creator is waiting in that present moment. And in that present moment, all needs are unified. We have that one need, is to remember. And even as I say these things, there's a part of my mind that knows it's afraid to give up control. I know what's best. What is, just sitting in the presence, what does that do for anybody? It's clinging to the idea that it's something that has to be done for somebody. But if something had to be done, you would get the idea. You would get the idea. What I like to refer to as loud ideas come to me. It's either what to say or what to do. But it comes from sitting in that presence and asking, what is the will of God? I desire that the will of God, that I become aware of it. And the will of God always involves the peace, the universal peace, the universal innocence. Right? So the aim of prayer is to release the present from its chains of past illusions. To let it be a freely chosen remedy for every choice that stood for a mistake. Right? So we just allow prayer to be that joining without knowing what has to be done. Right? At one point Jesus says, you don't know what's in your own best interest. So just come with holy empty hands unto your God. Because when I think I know what has to be done, I'm back in the ego. I'm back in the ego. All right? Instead of letting prayer be a freely chosen remedy, right, from every choice that stood for a mistake. Every time I think I know, it's a mistake. Because I'm reinforcing the mistake of believing I'm separate. And now I have to take care of everything. And you could see how it's a practice of letting go of control, of letting go of knowing what has to be done. In sentence 6 in paragraph 3, he says, what prayer can offer now so far exceeds all that you asked before, that it is pitiful to be content with less. Once again, I'm hearing that word trust. I have to trust that when I come to that present moment and I relinquish everything I think I know has to be done, all the remedies and all the help that has to be done. Right? Just sit in the oneness. Right? It says, then what prayer can offer far exceeds all that you asked before. All right? And he says, it is pitiful to be content with less. All right? In paragraph 4, he tells us, you have chosen a newborn chance each time you pray. And would you stifle and imprison it in ancient prisons? Well, the chance has come to free yourself from all of them at once. Do not restrict your asking. Right? Prayer can bring the peace of God. What time-bound thing can give you more than this? In just the little space that lasts until it crumbles into dust. All right? He says, prayer can bring the peace of God. Right? That joining with the memory of who you are, the joining with God. It can bring you the peace of God that passes all understanding, as I think St. Paul said. It can't be even verbalized. He says, so prayer can bring you that. Right? If you just let go of what you think you need. Right? Do not restrict your asking. In other words, let go of what you think you need. And that becomes a practice, because so sometimes the fear is so great, I have to control the situation. All right? I know what he needs, I know what she needs. Right? Do not restrict your asking. Prayer can bring the peace of God. All right? So prayer can bring the peace of God. He says, what time-bound thing can give you more than this? Right? What in the world of form can give you more than the peace of God? Right? What time-bound thing can give you more than this in just the little space that lasts until it crumbles into dust? Right? So whatever we get in form, it's not going to last. It's time-bound. It will crumble into dust. Right? And he says, so each time you pray, you have chosen a new chance to reach those heights, to realize what you're clinging on to, how you're restricting yourself. Each time you pray, so you give yourself another opportunity to reach the peace of God. He says, you have chosen a newborn chance each time you pray. And would you stifle and imprison it in ancient prisons? In other words, I need this. I need this. Because that's stifling yourself. Right? That's restricting yourself. Right? In an ancient prison. I need this. I used to have it. Right? He says, why do that when the chances come to free yourself from all of them at once? So each time I get the urge or the notion or the desire to pray, to communicate with God, I have the opportunity. I have the opportunity to free myself from everything. Right? The chances come to free yourself from all of these little prisons. Right? Do not restrict your asking. Right? The specifics restrict the asking. Right? prayer can bring the peace of God. What time-bound thing can give you more than this in just a little space that lasts until it crumbles into dust? Do not restrict your asking. At one point in the text, Jesus says, forget this world. Forget this course. Right? Forget all these things and come with holy, empty hands or holy, open arms. I forget now. See, I'm getting old. Come with holy, empty hands unto your God. So forget it. Forget all this stuff about the world. And just sit in the presence of your Creator. Right? Imagine it any way you want, and you'll be getting there. Right? And he says, that can bring you the peace of God. Right? Alrighty then. Hope I didn't confuse you more. No more than I am anyway. Alrighty then, I look forward to the next session, which I believe it finishes the Song of Prayer, and then the next week we'll go on to forgiveness. All right, but next week we have the title, The Latter Ends. Okay. Thank you for helping me to study. See ya.